you have black screen, you have BSPN, right? You have like that black bro, and honestly, I'm gonna say it right now, and I don't care who I offend with this statement. Put me and any of them people in that black row against anybody else on the screen, and we will wash you. I promise you, we would wash you.
Sometimes you meet people and instantly connect. It can be because you have similar backgrounds or sometimes opposites. In today's case, with my guest today, is somebody I met when I was at ESPN, and come to find out we had a lot in common, from being devout Christians, diehard Orioles fans, loving baseball, and both from Baltimore. Me and my guest, Omar Powell, instantly clicked. And to this day, we still keep in contact, whether it's about pro wrestling or sports. Well, today he comes on the show to share his story. He recently left ESPN after nearly 7 years. He started about a few months after I did, and he stayed longer. I'm not even going to say much more because, as you can see, this is a long episode, but a very important one. As you'll see, I should say, you'll hear some of the highs, the lows, and how he's been able to bounce back and be in the best shape of his life, spiritually and mentally. So, ladies and gentlemen, here's my interview with the one and only Omar Powell. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Breaking Through Glass Ceilings. We coming back. This is the 4th season, and we starting it off with a banger. I'm starting off with a good friend, a little brother of mine, somebody that I work with at the 4-letter. When I tell you, I watched him come in and immediately grab the brass ring. That's exactly what happened. And he stayed there for quite a while. We'll get into that. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the one, the only. He's from Baltimore, but now residing in Las Vegas, the one and only Omar Powell. Omar, what's up, bro?
What's going on, man? It's good to be here. I've heard my name, dropped a couple times on the show, and actually, show up. I didn't realize it was the season debut. So wow, all right, I get to kick off the season. This is fun.
Yeah, man. You definitely made an impact in so many of your coworkers' lives. Shout out to Jake Del Moro. I remember y'all coming in together, and that was like an elite class from what I remember. And I want to say y'all were about 2 or 3 classes after mine. So okay. I started. Well, it's probably more than 2 or 3, but like kind of like memorable ones, to be honest with you. But I remember I started in September. Well, my start date was September 9th, 2013, and you was about January, February?
14th? March 10th, 2014.
March. Okay, yeah, I knew it was around that time. Because I was transitioning out of I was in ABC News 1, but kind of transitioning the highlights. And I actually still remember like the first time we met, somehow or another, we both made the Baltimore connection. And one, it was first because he was black. And everybody knows that ESPN, which I'm pretty sure has been very in the headlines a lot lately.
Yeah.
Ain't too many black people there, the ratio. So when you start and you see somebody else black come in, the first thing you do, you like, hey, whatever you need, I got you. Now, some people take the advice and some people go a different direction. But then, we obviously found out we both from B-more, so that certainly helped. But man, before we get into that though, how you feeling first and foremost?
I'm good, man. Life is good. I'm in a much better space.
Of course, you're in Vegas.
Yeah. I'm in a much better space physically. I'm in a much better space mentally, spiritually. Just in every part of my life, honestly, right now, life is good. That's just, where I'm at right now. And, I'm just taking everything a day at a time, take it all in stride, and every day's a learning lesson. But yeah, things are good, man. Life is good.
That's awesome. That's certainly something I love to hear. I know before you got into your production career, you did something that I found out that you did something that I thought was one of the most amazing things. You got a chance to play baseball at Camden Yards, and
Yeah.
you had a baseball career. Was that the first sport you fell in love with?
No, basketball was the first
Okay.
sport. Basketball was the first love. In my house, dad played basketball on Saturdays. With his work colleagues, that was what they did. And then for me, like it was Michael Jordan. That's my guy to this day. And for me, that's much watch TV in my house at 5 and 6 years old. And that's when I'm like starting to come into it. So people would ask me as a kid, like, what do you want to do when you grow up? I'm like, yeah, I'm going to the league. I'm going out of high school. Like I'm going to the league, because one, I didn't really like school too much back then. And I just assumed, you're a kid, you're naive to a lot of things. And yeah, but it wasn't until I want to say I was 7 years old that I discovered baseball. Really, my dad and I went to a game in Camden Yards. Don't remember who we played. I just remember we got free tickets, sat on the third base side. Arthur Rhodes picked up the save.
Wow.
I just don't remember who we played that night, but that was kind of like the night that it kind of changed. And then finding out my dad played baseball growing up,
Mhm.
for me, that was just like, all right, well, let's try this baseball thing. And so, yeah, in '06 and in '07, I played at Camden Yards. I played there twice. Great experience, love it. That's home. Like that's home. I went when I was back last month, which was just fun, and got a chance to just go around the park. And that place is home. Like as much as Baltimore is home, Camden really is home.
So would you agree when I say that's still the greatest stadium in baseball?
Oh, by far, by far.
I know that everybody's doing the modern thing, but remember who started it?
The retro modern thing. Like, yeah, everybody's doing like, San Diego's. I love San Diego. I love Petco, but that's Camden West. You got the warehouse on the opposite side of the field. You got the brick backdrop, and you got the open space. Like, no, you're trying, but I get it. You got it. But
Yeah,
yeah, I've been to a few stadiums, but that Camden is by far still the
yeah,
best one.
yeah, man. Well, that's pretty dope. Especially you getting to see a legend in Arthur Rhodes pitch. I think back to the '96 and '97 years. I don't know how vividly you remember them.
Not too much. Like the,
Okay.
the things I remember the most are the magnet that we had on the fridge
Uh huh.
that had the whole team. So I remember, like Robbie and BJ and Cal, of course, and Brady, pre-roided Brady. When we had Moose, and
Yeah.
we had Moose. And yes, I mean, I remember, bits and pieces of it. My grandmother, was a big baseball fan and big Orioles fan. Like that was the thing. Like, don't touch her Diet Pepsi, and don't bother her when she's watching the O's.
Yeah.
That's it.
Same here, man. And that was the thing, like I vividly remember like the '96 and the '97 season, watching as much baseball as I could. And at that time you could watch the games on network television at home. But what made you decide to really get into the media side and the production side?
Yeah, I mean, I found journalism when I was a sophomore in high school. Yeah, so sophomore in high school, took a journalism class. It's a situation where you need electives,
Hmm.
and so I was like, all right, let's try this out. I had a friend who, she's a year older than me, but we've grown up together. Like she lives around the corner from my parents' house. We went to the same elementary school, the same middle school, the same high school. We go to the same church. Like that's my sis. So she was taking a journalism class, and so I was like, let's just try it out, and found myself really enjoying it. That was the thing that I wasn't expecting, was how much I really enjoyed it. And that was print journalism, really. So I did in my sophomore year and my junior year. In junior year, I was the sports editor for the school paper, and of
What
course
high school you
still
went to?
Randallstown.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was my first experience into media, and then from there, I just knew that was what I wanted to do. I just wanted to go into media.
Yeah. Now you getting that opportunity, did you find yourself like during the summertime writing and writing those stories?
No, honestly, it was a thing where I would have it for, that time period of class, whatever it was, a semester or a year, whatever it was. I can't remember, but I did all my writing then, really.
Okay.
And, of course, like, you're doing, you do papers and such like that. But in terms of like journalism, that was really the bulk of it. And otherwise, in my summers, I was playing baseball between spring for high school and then travel in summer and fall. So,
Oh,
yeah.
okay. So now what led you to Michigan State?
So, in full transparency, State is the only school in the Big Ten I actually like.
Okay.
So as a kid, I was just kind of like I always wanted to go to Maryland, because that's home base, and you see it, and it's prominent. And so for me, I always wanted to go to Maryland. And my three big schools, because that was my idea of college, the idea that they always pump into your brain of what college is, right?
Yeah.
So for me, my three big schools was Maryland, Miami, and then Michigan State. I remember Michigan State strictly because my dad and I were watching the 2000 national championship game.
Wow.
So
Matee and
that was,
Cleaves, right?
oh,
And Mo Peterson.
yes, and the Flintstones. Yeah. So that was, 8 years later. It's crazy how things stick in your brain that you don't ever really realize stick in your brain.
Mm-hmm.
And so 8 years later, when I'm applying for colleges, I was like, why not? Let's just try it, see what happens. And after Maryland said no and broke my heart, and then I wrote my appeal letter that, kind of fell on deaf ears. I came home and there was a giant packet on the counter. And I opened it and it's like, you've been accepted, and I was like, all right, we're going to State. So the greatest and best decision of my life, honestly, in terms of just, making a decision and stepping out on faith, because it was really just, I love that place. Like, it's a magical place. I love East Lansing.
Are you planning a huge celebration, and perhaps you need some balloons to make your event look nice? Well, I have the perfect place for you, and that's Symphony of Balloons. Symphony of Balloons will do all events, including baby showers, weddings, birthday parties, or that special anniversary. Contact them today at 410-802-1531 or email them at symphonyofballoons@gmail.com and tell them Brian H. Waters sent you. Yeah, I've heard a lot of people who went there like really love it. When you took up journalism there, right?
Yeah.
Did you get a chance to? No, first before I get there, when did you decide, like, how hard was it to transition from sports into going full throttle academics? Because here you not only played during the season, but you also played travel team, and that's an opportunity. A lot of times people can have that difficult transition letting it go. We big wrestling fans, obviously. So we see people like Ric Flair who can't get enough of that pop when he comes out the crowd. And I can imagine, like, in sports, you're used to that instant gratification when you out there playing and you hitting home runs and stuff. How hard was it for you to make that transition?
It was, I think, a little bit harder than I realized, kind of looking back at it. Some things that kind of soured by the time I got to State in terms of, me playing travel ball and such. So some things that soured on that part. And then when I got to State, met with the coach, Jake Boss, figured out, tryouts and everything, tried to make a tryout happen. Should have in hindsight, I should have just took my physical. I didn't do it. Because I relied on my doctor's office to send me the physical, which they said they would have, because I had one like a few months prior. And they never sent it. So I never had, I never tried out because of that, because, in that point, you have to have your physical. So I didn't tried out for the club team, didn't pan out. And so it got to a point where I was like, man, this is kind of difficult to like go a little bit of, because, you still love the game. You've been playing it. Now at this point, I've been playing it for 10 years, since I was a kid, and all I really wanted to do was just, keep playing. So the transition in hindsight was a little bit harder than I probably realized, but I think it just got to a point where I was like, look, it's not the end all be all. I'm here, and there's still ways for me to be able to do some of the things that I want to do or be around the game still. So that was kind of the approach that I ended up taking.
Now, did you get a chance? Do you remember any like big stories you got to cover at Michigan State?
Man, not necessarily big stories. So a couple of things that I did when I was at state, every Big Ten school, is connected with Big Ten Network. So each Big Ten school has a production they call Student U, where the students make the production. So we what we did was live events. So I got to do in the fall the press conferences for football, preseason basketball, men's basketball, Midnight Madness. Um, got to do a couple women's games, field hockey, volleyball, wrestling, baseball, softball. Got to do all of those things. So for me, that was kind of the big things that I did were actual events and getting paid to do so. As a college student, which was great. So for the year and a half, 2 years that I did that, that was really gratifying, especially, like March Madness. Like, I mean, not March Madness, excuse me, Midnight Madness, which is, just a fun event in itself to get you ready for basketball season. And I vividly remember sitting on the sideline, like along the baseline of the, underneath the basket with the camera, and I have a picture of it too, just cameras mounted in my head in my O's cap. And it's just like, because, for me, like everybody's like, for the most part, they are Detroiters. And I'm like,
Of course.
I'm not trying to hear any of that stuff, so I took home with me everywhere I went.
And you was up there during the time when the Orioles and the Tigers were kind of battling, right? Like right before it got really good, but as the Orioles are like in the like the 2012-ish era, right?
Yeah, like as they're starting to ascend, like that whole run where we get Buck and they beat the Red Sox and knock them out the playoffs, and then the Rays have that walk off, like Longoria has that walk off, like a few minutes later.
Yeah,
that was kind of the whole thing. But they already had been to a World Series too.
I was about to say, yeah.
So like we're playing catch up, but it was a thing where that's the time period it was. So
okay, yeah, man. So you did you start your sneaker blog while you were in college?
Yeah, started Soul U 10 years ago. Which is crazy to think it's been 10 years.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you. I'm in the process of bringing it back. I had a small hiccup. When I say small, I mean major hiccup along the way. So I'm working to fix that and make sure the website is operational. But other than that,
the wrestling realm been 10 years old, and I know what it's like to have to rearrange some things.
Yeah, like it's been good, in a sense. It started with some friends and but kind of looking at it, I was kind of always like the engine that just kept it going, and I did it because I honestly I loved it. And I think without doing that and putting myself in a position and treating it like a job in a sense, it allowed me to do some of the things that I've been able to do in the years since. And so yeah, I'm still working to bring it back. And now, with everything I've learned and everything that, I've experienced and also the connections that I've made and such, I'm definitely looking to bring it back soon. I'm going to try to get that whole situation fixed very soon. I've just been super busy with everything else going on.
And that's, if I'm not mistaken, where you just cover like all the latest sneakers and give like your review on them, correct?
Not necessarily my review, but it was more so just like news based, really just keep people in the know. And so now, with some of the skills that I've acquired professionally, and with time, it's been a thing where like I like the direction that I have it going in. I just have to just bring it to the world. But I'm really grateful because there were people who actually cared about what I had to say, which for me, I was like, wow, it's kind of cool. And seeing the analytics and such at times where you would see people are reading it in different continents. Like it had been read on all 6 continents except Antarctica. So I was like, that's kind of cool. Like someone actually cared enough to, to read what I, or to read what I wrote, or even to translate what I wrote to read, which is kind of cool. So
yeah. I'm not a sneakerhead by any means. I leave that up to the professionals. But I remember seeing you tweet about it, and I would check it out, and I was like, oh, this is really cool. When did we'll get back into your career in a second, but this is obviously a huge part of it as well. When did you develop your love for sneakers?
Really since childhood. I mean, for me, it kind of all started with, I mentioned Mike earlier, right? So like at the time, Michael Jordan is the hottest basketball
player. I like how you just said Mike, like, y'all buddy.
One day. But yeah, it just started with that. So, naturally, your favorite player, you want their shoes, right?
Mm-hmm.
In that sense. So at that time period, when I'm able to finally kind of comprehend a little bit of like who Michael Jordan is, we're around, Jordan 11s, Jordan 12s, Jordan 13s, and eventually 14, and he leaves at 98 and then comes back around. So that was really where it started. It was just kind of just, I really wanted my favorite player's shoes, and it's a thing where like you believe the marketing, right? You believe
Mm-hmm.
you make you fly. So I was like, yeah, like I want that. I want to be a kid who, I want to go to the league. Like I'm that same kid who goes outside and does the 3-2-1, and Jordan passes the Pippen, and Pippen passes back to Jordan, and you take the shot, and you're envisioning yourselves in this space. So that was really where my love of it started. The first shoe I really collected, not really knowing it, was the Reebok Question, Allen Iverson's debut shoe.
Okay.
So my dad, the parents tell you the white lie of, oh, your foot's a little too wide, right? The white lie. And it's
Oh.
so I really kind of got to a point where I realized like they just didn't want to buy me Jordans. So at least I got to a certain age where my foot would, kind of I could wear them for a while. So yeah, I had so many colorways of the Reebok Question in its original run as a kid, so that was really the first shoe I collected. And since then it's been great. I took some time in between. So, but I never really fell far away from it, like I maybe wasn't buying, everything I wanted, but at the same time, I was still aware of things. And then I made the decision in college. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna just start buying to collect. I'm gonna start tracking out all my old favorite pairs that I never had as a kid,
Mm-hmm.
or pairs I saw, in that in between stage. And I'm at a spot where my foot's finally stopped growing. So I'm just gonna buy everything that I wanted. And yeah, that's
It's
how
funny
that's how
you say that because that's exactly how now obviously I don't have as many belts as you have shoes, but that's exactly what my mindset was. When I first started collecting championship belts, it was in 20 into 2011. And then I, took a break, and it was being like a huge break. Then the pandemic happens. I don't have to pay for gas. I'm working from home. And then, I'm like, well, shoot, I'm starting to buy belts. And then shout out to WWE.com for having Klarna. Because I was like, wait, I can buy this and pay for it, and it's not no interest. Yeah, let me pay these installs, and you get points. But it was the
yeah.
same thing, going back. My god brother told me one time, he said 12-year-old you would be happy because you pretty much got like all these championship belts, so I could definitely understand where you're coming from with the shoes. Because I was going to ask you, like, growing up, how was your parents as far as, your desire for sneakers? Because, and now as a parent myself, I'm in the store a couple weeks ago taking my daughter. I'm like, all right, I'm not paying $80 for shoes you're only gonna wear and you're 6. Let's get the 40 or the $50 pair. So how were they with that? Was it just the Jordans they wasn't gonna buy?
I think that's kind of what it was. I mean, I had some New Balances. I had, like I mentioned, some Reeboks. I remember getting my first pair of Jordans probably around, I want to say 2000 or so. So at
Mm-hmm.
that point, I'm like 9 years old, and I just, probably, they probably feel like, all right, he's a little bit more responsible. He'll take care of them, whatever. And then, high school comes, or it's not necessarily high school, even elementary school. So I think the moment they started to kind of cave a little bit
Mm-hmm.
was, oh man, 2002. So this is February 2002, All-Star Weekend. The Air Jordan 17 comes out.
Okay.
Right. So history lesson for anybody who does not know, the Air Jordan 17 is Mike's second shoe in his Wizards stint. The 16 that came out before that in 2001. So, but the trick to the 17 was it was the first Air Jordan to cost $200.
I remember that.
So, and
With the suitcase, right?
it came in a briefcase. Yep. So my parents, and this is how crazy it is, right? My parents actually bought me a pair of Air Jordan 17s. And at this point, my foot was big enough that I could have an adult size. So I got the briefcase. I still have the briefcase to this day. The shoes are long gone. The CD I lost in the Dominican Republic.
Wait, it had a CD too?
It came with a CD, like a 4-track CD
Okay.
of original music, which was kind of cool. Lost that on a plane in the Dominican. And then the shoes are long gone, but the white and red Air Jordan 17, that was kind of like the moment I realized, like, oh, they kind of caving a little bit. Okay,
Yeah.
so because before they would tell me like, no, your foot's too wide for this shoe. That's 150, but like $200, yeah, you got it. I'm like, all right, cool. So that was how it went, and
It's so.
I wore those to the ground.
So you said, wait, what grade was you in?
That point, I was so early 2002. So at that point, I'm in the fifth grade.
Fifth grade. Wow. Okay. So yeah, we about all right. Yeah. So we're about 5 years apart. Cause I vividly remember when they came out and going to school. And I went to city and there was a lot of people who had Jordans, and there was the students who would, hook school. I remember even when I want to say it was the Concords. Like I'm starting to know the names now,
Mhm.
just listening to y'all and watching y'all content. But it was either, at that time it was considered the patent leather Jordans, and I remember people like not coming to school in the morning just to go to like Greenmount Avenue to go get them.
Yeah, that was the
And
thing.
yeah, so
I had
when
friends
those,
who left school in my senior year of high school, so 08, 09. I had friends who left to go get the purple eggplant flight posit one when
okay.
the eggplant flight posit one. And like literally they hooked school in the beginning of the day, went down to Mondawmin and got them and came back. And I was like, damn. And
Yeah.
now here I am, all these years later, like, man, I really wish I had a pair of flight posit ones right now.
And it's crazy because like I remember when these came out and it was $200, and
Yep.
people were saying, "Man, I want them. I ain't paying $200 for shoes." And at that time, I thought it was like a big deal. Now,
Yeah.
I mean, so my price limit was at one point 115. I haven't bought shoes in a while. I usually catch them on sale. But I've been trying to find, and maybe you can help me. I'm trying to get the fresh waters or the other editions, the ones that's like the fresh waters, but it's got like the gold in it, and I can't find them.
Okay.
But that's the thing, and I'm like, you know what? I'll cave, not too much, but I cave for some Griffies. But when
Yeah.
those came out, I remember that being like a big deal, and people was making a big deal that it came with the briefcase.
Yeah.
And it's funny to hear like now we say, well, it was $200 a big deal, but now it's normal.
It's normal and it's commonplace, but like imagine your kid comes to you at 9 years old and is fully cognizant of this thing that you don't expect them to be cognizant of.
Yeah.
And you're like, and they're trying to convince you to spend $200 on something
Mhm.
that's going to run into the ground. Like, and then
Right.
your logic is like, well, you better wear those every single day. And that's kind of how it was, my parents. And I remember, on Tuesdays, because I was in private school. So on Tuesdays, that was our recreational day.
Okay.
So, so we would go to the gym. We would go to the gym. So, and that was the only time you could wear your tennis shoes. Other than
Yep.
that, you would have, your uniform every other day. So literally that was the days I bought them out. And then when basketball, I kept playing basketball at that time too. So then I would, wear them when I was playing basketball and such. So yeah.
See, and see with me, because I went to Catholic school also, kindergarten to eighth grade, and from first to eighth, it's always, we called it gym days, and it was either Thursdays or Fridays. Every now and again, one year I think we did have gym on a Monday, but it was the same thing, And but my parents was like, "Look, Catholic school costs a lot, man." I remember once I got like the eighth grade, I was able to get the AM ones because it was a decent price. But man, we lived off of those 2 for $89.99 deals at Champs and not changes, Foot Locker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a time. Like it's just kind of looking back at it, it was a time. Because I remember even like fourth grade, like the year before that, I had a pair of Jordan 16 lows,
Mm-hmm.
and that was only because of the fact that my niece worked at downtown locker room at the time over in Towson.
Wow.
So and I was able to get those, and then my cousin rolls up because now my cousin's in my class. He rolls up and a pair of cherry wood Air Jordan 16s, and I'm ready to fight him for them because I'm like, yo, I want them. But the problem is his foot was so damn small, I couldn't have them. So I was like, look, I just got to deal with it. But I still want a pair of cherry woods to this day. We kind of talk about it every once in a while, but so
Now,
yeah.
if you have if and when you have children, they become sneakerheads. Do you see yourself caving early, or are you gonna make sure they get the history and appreciation first?
You got to get the appreciation of it because for me that's always where it came from. It was never really about the hype, for
Mm-hmm.
me. Like I know I'm in a space now where like in the sneaker culture is in a space now where hype dictates whether something is good or not, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna say I don't fall victim to it because as people can't see because we're in audio form, I have some things behind me that are worth a little bit of money.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a thing where for me, there wasn't any hype around it for me. It was truly the fact that one, I wanted my favorite player's shoes, and then two, over time, I just fell in love with the storytelling aspects of them, and then also the history and the knowledge of. And so, for me, like I don't want to say I know other people have said it about me that all right, if you want some knowledge or an encyclopedia, go find Omar, like to a degree. And I'm like, oh, okay, I accept that, but there's still people I defer to as well because I don't remember everything, but
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, like, yeah, like you got to get this history and get the knowledge first in order to do that. Cause I'm not going to be out here just buying $200 kicks. And then, you got to get to a space where one, you can appreciate the history and the knowledge behind it. And two, also be able to, take care of your, um, your belongings. Like that's part of it,
Yeah.
it's a responsibility thing too. So, yeah, all those things are involved.
Absolutely, man. So we'll definitely we're gonna talk sneakers again because I definitely have some questions as we get further into your career.
Mhm.
But you know, we talked about it. March 2014, you make a
Yeah.
trip to Bristol, Connecticut. So how soon had you graduated before you applied for ESPN?
Um, I really don't remember. I know I finished. So I walked in May of 13. I got my degree in September of 13 because I delayed my last summer class to like the very last session because I wanted to enjoy a little bit of summer. So it may have been December of 13 when I applied,
Okay.
probably. I want to say December of 13 because I was freelancing a little bit. Like I was doing a couple of events. Like I did Maryland and Clemson, when Clemson came to Maryland, and that was the Sammy Watkins, DeAndre Hopkins Clemson team. And then I also
Wow.
yeah, and in hindsight, I didn't even really notice it until like recently. I was like, whoa, okay.
I know,
You know,
right?
I was like, man, I was there to see them in person. That's crazy. But then there was also I did the Armed Forces Bowl
Mm.
that December, which was Maryland and Marshall. So I freelanced a little bit. So I think it was that December I applied for a production assistant role. I had a friend, shout out Brian Kuhn, who was working at Fox Sports at the time. And I was like, well, what did you go in for? Because we worked together at Big Ten Network
Mm.
while we were in school. And he's like, yeah, I went for a production assistant role. And, and so I was like, okay. So that's when I started looking for production assistant roles. And yeah, one thing led to another. I had that interview, the infamous interview in February of 2014, where I missed my flight. Yeah, the infamous flight missed, and this is where I slander Southwest Airlines. But yeah, I missed the first day of my two-part interview, and then fortunately, all as well as end well because they hired me. So it
Yeah,
was
it was
that
weird
way.
because I remember y'all did like y'all tour at night too, right?
Yeah, so they kind of base it around like a holiday shift, essentially. Like you went to a
Yeah.
holiday meeting, you went to the holiday meeting, you sat with somebody, then you kind of got the ropes, and that was pretty much it. And then the next morning you had your actual interview where you sit down and you go through all the tests that they give you and all those things. And so my day was a little bit differently because I'm frantic and panicking that I'm not going to get hired because I've missed this flight that
Mhm.
Southwest has caused me to miss. That needs to be noted because I didn't miss it on my own accord. Um, so I'm panicking. My suitcase is already in Connecticut, and I've never been to Connecticut, and it's just cold as all I know.
Mhm.
And yeah, Tom McCarter literally was like, "All right, we need you to come in like early." So I came in early, like probably like 7 o'clock, something like that.
Yeah.
And everything that they learned in that evening, they crammed it into that into that time window right before the interview started. And I was like, "All right, cool, let's go with it." And then from there, it was light work from that point. It was honestly easier after that. But
Yeah,
yeah,
because it was. I remember. So with us, and me, I was there the second to last week of August, and we came in. They flew us in the night before, and you was just free to do whatever you wanted to do. Shout out to Alexandria Gibalisco. She was bowling at the time. she had graduated from Morgan 2 years before I did, and I remember like reaching out to her when I had the interview. She said, "When you come in, we're gonna go out to dinner and we're gonna just talk." And she gave me like the last night before preparation, and that morning we did our like interview. Do you remember? Do you remember anything from your tests?
So the shot sheet test.
Yeah,
I remember I had one error, right? So insufficient. One error. And that was on a play where it was like an inbound play. I think it was like the Bulls and somebody else, can't remember, but it was like a little inbound play. I had like one little shot sheet error. The second play was easy because it was literally the Ravens 49ers Super Bowl.
I was gonna say you got the same thing too.
So McCarter was like, "Oh, you should get this easily," and I was like, "So I did it." I was like, "Oh yeah, I know this play."
Jacoby Jones.
No, I didn't have the Jacoby Jones one. I had the one to Pitta.
Oh, okay.
I had the one to Pitta. And so that was like, I was like, oh, that's easy. I've seen this game a lot, whatever. And then the third one, I forgot, it was like a baseball player or something like that. And then he later goes, okay, after I did that, he's like, well, what were the other scores in the game? And I was like, well, Flacco had a touchdown pass to Ant corner across the middle on a post. And then like it was like little things like that. And I was like, he's like, how long? He's like, how many yards? I was like, it was short. And I was in my head trying to think. I was like, because I was like visualizing where it was on the field. I could still see it. And it was a 1 yard touchdown, a little post across the middle. And so like I was like, yeah. So I think the fact that I was able to, automatically recall something, that seemingly somebody else probably be like, I don't really remember. Like just, for me, and especially in that time period where it was a year removed. So
yeah.
I had really digested that game. I mean, not as much as I've digested Super Bowl 35, because I can tell you that frontwards and backwards. But yeah, so that was kind of how that whole thing went, and I think that was what helped me. Especially after the whole snafu where South helped me to miss my flight, which I will always say.
Yeah, it was for me, mind you, this is August, so we're 6 months later, and it was the second play, like the second line on the shot sheet or the second video clip was that, and it was the one where Jacoby caught the ball in the reception and he did the dance spin around. And I remember even Wright getting fancy on the shot sheet. He gets the ball, catches it, does it, the cool spin, something crazy.
Yeah.
And and I remember he said that one thing that, and this is for anybody, whoever decides to apply there, when he said the one thing rules are, there are no rules, I didn't realize that I could look on my phone. So it was like, the Giants, there was a play from the Giants-Tigers World Series. And, the Giants don't have the jerseys, the names on the back of the jerseys for their home. And I didn't realize that. So it was like something to Dimitri Young that I didn't put on there, or was it Delman Young? So that part, like, I was like, oh, man, I could have did better. During your interview, was there ever a time they brought up Soul U?
No, not during the interview that I can remember. I remember it being brought up after I was hired.
Okay.
And we were all in a room doing like orientation, that first week or whatever. And, they're kind of going through the employee handbook and such. And they told me I could keep my website. Honestly, I didn't even know it was a possibility they could take it from me in a sense, or at least tell me to stop. I honestly did not know that at the time. And honestly, too, at the time, ESPN wasn't involved in the sneaker space. So it was a thing where it served no threat. It was just like, I'm like, hey, like, this is just something I would love to do, so just let me have it. And, once they, decided that, it's harmless, it's just, I'm like, yeah, leave me alone, let me cook. So, yeah.
Yeah, because, so during the interview, I remember, shout out to Allison, I can't remember her last name, but she would later become my supervisor, or I was on the sales QC team. She saw the wrestling realm and she was like super impressed. And I remember relaying that to Dwayne, my co-host, and I was like, bro, like the realm really got me hired at ESPN. And he's like, really? I was like, yeah, because like she saw it and she was like, oh, this is great, yada, yada, yada. But, for me, I think I may have told you the story. I had started like blogging just on like brianhwaters.com, and I was just, write just little short stories, and I was starting to do wrestling blogs. So then you remember the off season when Torrey Smith left the Ravens, and he was one of my favorite players on the team. So I was like disappointed, but I wrote like a goodbye, thank you for everything you did. And then at that time, I was also a Cowboys fan. So I was upset that DeMarco Murray went to the Eagles. I was like, bye, DeMarco, go fly with the Eagles. And next thing you know, I get an email that says conversation and connect. And I'm like, okay, who's this going to be with? So they pull up the website. Oh, you can't do this because you're a production assistant. I'm like, well, y'all don't pay me for my opinion. Y'all pay me to produce sports. I'm not even using your stats. And by the way, everybody who don't know, ESPN uses baseball, basketball, football reference.com. When I was there, I thought that they had their own website. No, they use baseball reference football.com. So I was
reference, and they have Elias on speed dial.
Exactly. So, but they like really made it like a big deal, and I just thought that was the most ridiculous thing. But
I was saying, I was just fortunate they allowed me to keep it because, I think for me, like, it was a good escape. It gave me something to still do and still be passionate about, and for me, like, that was something that I had built, from nothing. Like, it was literally, I remember making the logo on a trial edition of Photoshop, trying to teach myself Photoshop and using the school computer to upgrade the logo. A couple years later, had professors who believed in me and pushed me and said, "Yeah, you should start this thing." And I didn't really want to do it, but I was like, "Yeah, all right, let's just." They convinced me, and honestly, it worked out. Like, it really worked out. So I was glad I was able to keep it, and I'm even happier that I'm going to be bringing it back. So,
yeah, man, me too. That's dope. I want to take a quick minute to talk about mental health. As you all know, we are living in unprecedented times, whether it's the racial pandemic or the COVID-19 pandemic. Well, I want to introduce you to Hope Again Counseling Services, where transformation begins. Hope Again provides help for children, adolescents, adults, family, and couples. So give them a call at 410-698-8442 or visit them on the web at yourhopeagain.com to book your appointment. If you are willing to believe, you will begin to achieve, and ultimately, Hope Again Counseling Services can help you receive all that is meant for you. What was your first in the rotation? As a production assistant, using CAP also, right? Content Associate Program.
Yeah. So I was down in the basement. I started off in content screening.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, I started off in content screening and then moved up to highlights.
It's now content screening. Those who don't know, that's where you got to sit there and scrub, right? Make sure any ads that's not supposed to be in place, you got to take them out.
No, that's I feel like that's sales QC. I think.
No, QC is when you gotta let the producers know what ads didn't run.
Okay, no. So what we did was we had to condense a game.
Yeah, down. That's what it was. Okay.
Yeah, we had to condense a game down, but also too, there was like international programming that you had to like schedule for and essentially kind of like caption in a sense, like kind of like, all right, an A block was 5 minutes long, and it went from this time code to this time code, and here's a quick synopsis of what happened in A block, and then B block do the same thing, and then with cutting down the games, you would have to like literally take this 4-hour game and cut it down to a 2-hour window for the re-air, which comes on at like 3 a.m. or whatever, so it was a lot of as we said, you would drop and bridge. You would drop a segment and then you would bridge it, and you put in a bridge jip. It's crazy. I remember all this. You drop in a bridge jip, which is like we now, it's that message when you wake up, you all starry-eyed, and you wake up and you hear due to time constraints, we move forward in our action. That's your bridge jip, and it takes you from the 4th inning to the 6th inning automatically. Like that was it. You dropped in bridge and you did what you needed to do to get that time limit or get right within it.
Did you choose which parts came out of the game, or they told you?
Yeah, I chose. Yeah, we choose what parts come in and out of the game, but like it's a conversation that you have with with your producer who's there with you. You have that conversation being like, okay, well, what happened in this part of the game? You're like, all right, well, this happened. It's nothing really super important. Like, okay, cool, drop it. Like, so that was really what that was. So that kind of helped, get you started to at least learn the editing software that was there, and then get you familiar with some of the software that they had there as well, like NCS, and kind of like learning the ropes really.
Yeah. Now, you went to highlights afterwards?
Went to highlights. I was super happy to get out of the basement.
Yeah, because you don't get a chance to meet anybody.
No, and you're working crazy hours. Like my first shift was like 3 to 12.
Yeah.
Like I remember that my first day I walked in, it was 3 p.m. to 12 a.m. And I'm like, what? Okay, all right. Well, this is different. So there was that. But highlights, did highlights for a little bit. I did a couple stints on highlights, and honestly, by the time I came back up the highlights, like the second time or second and a half time, I was not thrilled.
All right.
So it was the funniest thing because I sat in that highlight meeting with anger day after day, and people were looking at me probably like, "What the hell is he so mad about?" But then every report would be, "Omar has the greatest attitude," and I was just like, "Look, man, like I'm gonna let you know I'm not happy to be here, but I'm still gonna do my job to the best of my abilities. But please believe I'm not really thrilled to be here right now."
It's a different beast. I tell people, if you like that, watching the game and gotta break it down and literally watch everything and note everything, and then you get there and you're like, oh man, this was a good game, and then all of a sudden something happens to somebody else's game, and now your game doesn't air. You're like, so I just did work for nothing.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and that was a tough lesson. Like seeing your highlight get floated for the first time, you're like, man, like I put all my work into this, and that kind of hurts when you first, you're first starting, and then you get to a point where you're like, all right, like it is what it is, and then you're like, well, if you floated it, the morning show probably isn't going to want it, so let me see if I can get out of here a couple hours early. Like that was once you start learning like the little tricks of the trade, you're like, yo, all right, this don't bother me anymore. Like this shit don't bother me. I think it did. Actually, no. It got floated. My very first highlight ever got floated. It was spring training. I think it may have been Cubs Sox or Cubs Cardinals.
It's funny, you could tell who stayed on highlights for a long time and who didn't, because usually us who didn't stay on there that long remembers our first highlight like it was yesterday.
Yeah, I did so many of them to the point where I forgot. I remember memorable ones.
Okay.
But I remember the first one getting floated was on Baseball Tonight. It got floated. I remember telling my mom and dad, like, hey, you stay up and watch this, da 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 da. It's gonna happen around this time, and gone. Nothing. We had to make time, so it got floated. But yeah. But
did you get any Orioles highlights?
So Pete McConville, great guy. Pete literally, I forgot how this went. I did some highlight randomly one day, and this is when Pete took over screening, and I think you were gone by this point.
Yeah, and I don't know the name.
Yeah, so Pete goes to me, he's giving feedback, and he's like he's a guy who literally, he'll tell you exactly what he's thinking. He will not pull his punches, and he might yell at you, like legitimately yell at you. But the thing is, like, he actually cares. Which is kind of, which to me, like, I related to in a sense, like, he was like a coach in that sense, coaches I seen growing up. So he goes, I find it very interesting how you look at a baseball game. Who are your teams? And I was like, and he's like, all sports, like, who are your teams? So then, I get to in his baseball season, I'm like, the Orioles. He goes, all right, done. The rest of that season, I had nothing but Orioles games. Entire season, I was like, good. I get to watch my team. I get paid to watch my team. And we're actually good. This is perfect. So
this is like 16, 15, 16?
Yeah, I think it's 16-ish, 15, okay. 16. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, there was a few highlights that I did that were just kind of that were out there, that were fun. The one I remember that comes to mind the most was off the top of my head, there was an Orioles game where, well, actually, no, I'll put it this way. Two of them. One is fun, one is not so fun. One is very serious. The first one that was fun, I remember, it was the week of the Preakness. So the Preakness, the same day of the Preakness. So they put the Preakness. So I literally pitched in the highlight meeting. I'm like, look, because on weekends we really didn't have one, but I kind of pitched this idea to whoever was producing. I'm like, look, put these two together. Put the Preakness highlight first, and then put the Orioles highlight right behind it. Because my idea was to do a Google's map to take you from Pimlico to Camden.
Hey.
So that was my idea in the middle. So like literally they built this entire segment that I asked for, basically, And we do this whole thing of like, here's the Preakness highlight, and then literally the Google map pops up and it's like, takes you out, then it takes you right down to Camden Yards, drops you in, highlight goes. Right. So that was a good one. And then it was like an all horse theme highlight, right? Like I think like Matt Shoemaker was still on the team for the Angels. So it was like, we did like a whole Shoemaker thing, and I forgot like the horse or whatever. I'm not really big into horse racing, but yeah, we made a whole entire like horse race kind of like theme deal.
But that's like something only somebody from Baltimore will come up
and
with.
That's exactly what Pete said. He was like, he goes, you ever wonder why we give the Orioles game to a guy from Baltimore? Here's why. And then literally I was like, yeah, like Preakness, Baltimore. All right, cool. Orioles, Baltimore, me, Baltimore. Duh, smart, right? The other one that was more serious, I did the highlight after Freddie Gray, where the Orioles played the White Sox in an empty stadium.
Wait, okay, so I'm still there.
I did that highlight for
Got you. Yeah, I was in social media at that time because that was a day game.
Yeah, it was a day game. They moved it to the middle of the day, and it was empty. It was completely empty.
So
I remember that highlight, and honestly, to me, that was weird because like I've never seen a major league game without fans, and to this day, I don't think there's. I mean, until the coronavirus, right. there wasn't a major league game played without fans. But for me, it was kind of cool because it took me back to when I played at Camden, where there was very minimal people in the building. So like you hear everything. So that was the biggest part about the highlight. Like we wanted to amplify the sounds around it. And like just like and also like the weirdness of it. So like there was a home run that we went shot full on where you could hear everybody screaming like, yeah, and then you hear the ball land, which you never hear in a full stadium. And then there was like a third out where Chris Davis gets the ball, they always toss it into the stands. Toss the ball into the stands, and of course there's no one there to catch it. Yeah. So it was just like weird things like that. We played to the weirdness of it. We told the serious story of it, with the lead in and everything and the reason, the context behind it. But in terms of the highlight, it was really about just really building up that ambiance and being like, look, there's no one in this building.
Yeah. And that was the year you had already been put on the Orioles unit?
Yeah, basically. Yeah, that was because that happened because Freddie Gray, what happened?
2015?
15.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was yeah. So that was during my first big stint in highlights. Yeah.
Was you at work the night of the riots?
I was not there the night of. I was there the day of.
Okay.
So I was there during the day. I remember seeing it on CNN and seeing like the CVS that on North Avenue, like seeing that. Yeah. And I was like, man, it's like these are places I've seen growing up. That are on fire. And it to me was, and that was the first time I actually had experienced a riot. My mom was telling me about like the previous riot like in the 60s, and everything like that, like down by the arena and such. But like that was the first time I actually experienced something like that. So it was a lot of emotion that went into that day because it was just hard to watch. Like I understood, and it was, you empathize with your people, but also it was like just hard to see that and fathom like places that I've seen my entire life on fire. That was definitely a shocking moment for me.
Yeah, I was at home during the day because I was on a 4-to-1 shift with social media, and I remember seeing on Instagram Purge coming today at whatever time, getting to work, and you remember I don't know when by the time you got to social, but we started our day off in whatever building we was in. I think that's building 4 or 3 or whatever.
Building 4, yeah.
Building 4. And then we went to the newsroom during the games and then came back. So I remember being in the newsroom and seeing Baltimore on fire. And I don't know why this producer, he was like one of the big wig producers of Sports Center, Tom McCarty, I think. Tom DeCourty. Said to me, and I always appreciate, he said, "You're from Baltimore, right?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Have you checked on your family?" And I remember just sitting there, all I remember was James Harden had a good game, but I wasn't paying attention to nothing. Like I'm worried about what's going on at home. And this is during the playoffs too. This is like the NBA playoffs, probably like
April. It was like mid-April or late April, yeah. Yeah,
so it's like first round. But it was definitely different being there, and then you trying to make sure everybody's good. And then of course you're saying like the media is making out to be one thing. It ain't that serious, as I was wondering, I was wondering where were you during that time?
Yeah, I was in screening. I remember watching that. Yeah. And so, that was a thing because I can't remember if I maybe had like a day game or something was happening. And, did the same thing. Make sure, I mean, for me, it was like, it's in the city, so it's not, where my parents are, but I still have family in the city, so I'm making sure everybody else down there is good and such. But yeah, that was a very I don't want to say interesting time, but it's just it was a moment in time. I'll put it that way. It was a moment in time.
Yeah, and like I said, I think it was best that you was the one who was able to cut the highlight, because you could give people the story, and that a lot of people wouldn't understand. It's a lot of
Yeah.
times in highlights you don't get a chance to see people really who understand cultures of teams, get the teams they get to showcase. It could be sometimes some favoritism, not all. I ain't gonna say not all the time, but but
Yeah.
being that Baltimore is a different city
Yeah.
than what people see on the map, so it's good that you got a chance to do all that. What was next after highlights?
Man, I'm trying to remember. I think that summer I did what is that? Actually no, not that summer, that fall, I did goal line.
Mhm.
So which was like, the NFL red zone equivalent of college football for ESPN. You jump around from game to game. Um, those are super long days. Like, oh my God, those days are long. And you're sitting in a room with, one other PA and an editor, and you have a producer coming through your McCurdy. God, it's crazy. I remember all this stuff. Coming through there, and we need this for this. This rundown. That kind of taught you the rundown, how to do a show, and so but you're sitting there and there's these two long monitors. You have 16 games up there that you're trying to keep your eye on, which is the craziest thing. Like the amount of shit that they throw at you is crazy.
How do you
Like,
prepare yourself the day before going into a shift like that?
man, it's it's just it becomes second nature. Like that's the thing.
Mhm.
Like they will teach you everything they need you to know.
Mhm.
They won't teach you everything you want to know or everything that
Right.
you know, but they will teach you everything you need to know to be able to do the job. Right. So it becomes, by the time you get, like, the first couple weeks are probably tough, but by week 3, week 4, and by the time you get to champ week, you're like, yes, finally, because it's only like 5 games.
Uh,
But like in that time period before, your brain is turned on. You got to think like you come in at a shift that's like 12 o'clock. You got all those 12 o'clock kickoffs, and then you leave at like probably like 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and that's like in the halftime of the 9 o'clock game. So now at this point, you've ran through the 12 o'clock window, the 4 o'clock window. Now you're in the late stages that you're just ready to go home and go to sleep. And usually your off day is that Sundays, Monday kind of deal.
mhm.
And you're like, yo, it's just the way it was set up. So you crash. But yeah, you get turned into a machine very quickly.
I see, man. I've heard a lot of stories about those college game, those college shifts. Because
Yeah, I
it's
mean, I did raps closer to the end of my. I went 4 years without doing raps
okay.
until some bullshit happened. And then, to be quite frank, some bullshit happened, and I ended up having to do raps. I did not enjoy it at all. And honestly, I hated the selling point, which was this would be a great learning experience. I'm like, I already know how to do one play, right? Like, I know how to do this. I can do this in my sleep. So
Mhm.
now I gotta do this, and I went from having weekends off to having to work on Saturdays. Damn right, I'm angry about this. Like, I don't want to be here. So this is the start of me really being that angry Omar. I'm sitting there like, yo, I don't want to be here. You say the wrong thing to me, I might snap at you a little bit. Like, that's just where we are with it.
And then
So,
first thing they say, man, you gotta watch him. He's from Baltimore.
bro, it's like I hate the joke, but I will make it in this case. Omar is coming. Like, Omar is coming. Please believe. Like, I am not the most pleasant person to be around at times. I will admit that. Like, I'm a great person, but at times I'm not the most pleasant person to be around.
Now I noticed you the only second content associate to work on the Humanitarian Awards. Can you talk about that?
Oh man, he pulled up the link.
I have to.
I forgot about
I would
that.
make sure to do the research. Like I said, we
Ooh,
celebrating you.
I forgot I did Humanitarian Awards. So you said that. Wow, that's crazy. Which is wild. So they started this thing around SBs the day before the SBs,
Mhm.
called the Humanitarian Awards, where they celebrate, the different humanitarians in sports. Um, I think the first one was oh god, I can't remember. I remember her face. She went to Columbia, played softball. She played on Rochi's team. I just can't remember her name. But yeah, she was the first one. So she taught me everything I need to know about that. And I was the second person to do the Humanitarian Awards. So it essentially was like fielding in all these pieces of content from everybody. So like WWE and the San Jose Sharks and, you know, Chris Paul, and name this athlete here, this team here, and bringing all these things together into like basically shipping all these deliverables to LA for the show.
Wow.
So like literally, I really didn't have any involvement in cutting anything. It was just all asset and content management, which honestly was like, it was crazy. Like in hindsight, like thinking back on that, because that's 2015. That was a very wild time. But at the end of it too, it was great to see that product. You know, you get a chance to see people doing some good work in the community. And then also too, like that was the one, it was a couple times where I felt appreciated at the company. That was a time where I particularly felt really appreciated. Because they called me over to Building 16, which I did not know existed. You know, a couple weeks later, it was like, hey, we want you to come over to Building 16. We have something for you. I was like,
isn't that all
okay,
the way
cool.
over the hill?
No, 16 is in the cut. So like, you know, okay, so DC2, if you come through, let's say if you come through the back way, right? Not the main gate, you come to this other gate, right? And you hit that left at the, you know, you hit the left because you have building 4 in front of you, hit the left, and then you'll see like the CAF and DC2 on your right. And there's that building that's in front of you, which is like 11 or whatever it is, like the HR building. There's there's their road that's to the left of it, and no one ever goes down because it's like the gate blocks it.
Okay.
Like, it's like, you know, it's like from the, so if you came down the street, it was just all gates, but it's kind of hidden. So Building 16 is back there. They gave me a bag full of some stuff.
Wow.
Which was cool. Like it had a bottle of champagne, it had, or Chardonnay rather, it had a bottle of Chardonnay. It had some custom coasters from Tiffany that I still have. They gave me coffee grounds. I don't even drink coffee, so those went bad. And some chocolate. I don't eat chocolate, so that went bad. But yeah, it was that was a good moment, and I felt appreciated with that one. So yeah, I actually forgot about the Humanitarian Awards, so you brought that up.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that building. I feel like I can't see it now. Obviously, it's been 6 years, something like that. But I have an idea. I remember like Building 16 kind of being like in a cut, or you know, hidden per se.
It's very hidden, like it's below the trees. There's literally a gate around it and everything. It's a low setting building too. Like it's not like a big building like the other ones.
Yeah. Now, what would you say has been like the highlight? We'll get into the fun stuff what people want to hear about. But you know, obviously, what would you say has been the highlight of your ESPN career? You know, you did some field producing and you did a lot of other stuff. You know, what was that, 7 years, 8 years?
7 years. I left just shy of my 7-year anniversary.
Okay. And so, what would you say was the highlight?
Oh man, I think, you know, for me, looking back at my entire experience, the biggest takeaway for it from me is the fact that I never cheated myself. I never kissed anybody's ass. I really stayed true to myself, which I think was, you know, that's the first highlight.
Right? I gotta say this because I know it's going to annoy you. You sound like LeBron James when he said, "I never cheated the game," and I know how much of a Michael fan you are.
I want my damn respect too. I'm still a Lakers fan first and foremost, right? Actually, I should say first and foremost. I'm a Lakers fan, but
right. It's okay. You can still like LeBron. You know, we can like them all. Like
Kobe. I respect them. I respect them.
You know what Kobe's tweet was? You know, it was one.
Yeah, I mean, you know, yeah, and before, you know, God rest Kobe. That's my guy. But yeah, so that was my first thing. You know, I felt like I never cheated myself. I never, you know, really, I didn't do anything that I, you know, felt that cut corners or anything like that in my career. So that was the first highlight. The second one, I think, I got a chance to really, you know, create my own lane within the company, which I think is kind of rare in a sense, right? Because everybody has their thing, like, you know, whether for good or bad. But there's a lot of people who are very cookie cutter, and you know, they are the prototypical production assistant or content associate or associate producer or whatever title
Facts.
you want to throw in. So for me, like I literally stayed true to myself. I wore my sneakers to work. I brought my personal style in. I talked the way that I talk and respectfully as well, but then also I didn't waver from things that I believed in. And also too, like I was able to, carve my own lane in terms of building out some sneaker content, which was fun. Field producing was great. Like Tim McHugh, I am always indebted to Tim McHugh because I feel like he was the first person who really took a chance on me outside of my manager Antoine Lewis. So I felt like McHugh, you know, took a big chance on me and gave me the opportunity to grow
Right.
with side projects. And then, every time he would see me after those couple side projects, he would go, have you gotten off campus yet? Have you left the building? I'm like, no. He's like, all right, cool, we'll work on that. Months go by. Have you left the building? Nah. Months go by a little bit later, and then a year later after that, it was like, all right, we're gonna get you to go field producing, which allowed me to be the first CA to go field produce. Yes, to this day, I'm pretty sure that probably holds up, but I don't know now with everything they got going on, but I'm sure it still holds up in some regards. So yeah, I was doing jobs that were well above my pay grade and well above my standing as a CA. So those are some of my highlights, honestly. And then the last one I'll say is I got to a space where I was able to create content, which was something I always wanted to do since day one.
Right.
That was something I wanted to do since day one. I was able to create content and use my imagination and my creativity and just have fun with it. So
Did you get a
those are
chance to meet or work with John Gervais? Jerv?
I did not. I don't believe so. No.
You know, it was so crazy because he was on the show few around the time, right around the time we was voting. And he was, big into the sneaker culture. He was more in the digital producer side. We met mainly because you know how the basketball scene would be. You go hoop, and when I started, he was roommates with a couple of people that I was hanging with. So that's how him and I got a chance to meet. And I remember him talking about when they had kind of started getting into the sneaker space. And I was just wondering, I was like, did y'all ever get a chance to work together? Because you sit back and you think like, man, like what people could have done. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's unfortunate a lot of times that Black people are kept separate.
Yeah.
It felt a lot of times where you would have like all your friends on a different shift.
Exactly. Or a whole different day, off days and such. Like it felt in ways that, we were not to be kept together. But then you have moments where you have the black row, right?
Yeah, this black screening.
Where you have black screening, you have BSPN, right? You have like that black row. And honestly, I'm gonna say it right now, and I don't care who I offend with this statement. Put me and any of them people in that black row against anybody else in the screen, and we will wash you. I promise you, we would wash you. Because we were hungry and we weren't in a situation where people were just handing us opportunities. We were hungry and we were all people who understood each other's plights and understood each other's worth ethic and everything like that. And we grinded back there. Like we grinded no matter what time of day it was, like whether it was a highlight shift at night or early a daily show in the morning. Like yeah, we was running that back row. And yeah, I know it is the black row because it really was the black row. We was running some shit back there. So
we didn't have time to take a day off while we were there. You know what I mean? You couldn't come and show up because you always thought about, man, well, people, what they gonna say about me? For me, I was the only Black person on the Sports Center social media team. So, but in the room, you had two other Black people. They just worked on different shows. So the Sports Center team, I think it was like what's time, 3 a.m. and 2 p.m, whatever. So it's probably about between 5 to 6 PAs at once. And I was always the only Black person. And I will say that one of the things you talked about was finding somebody who was able to help you, who was able to see you for your individuality and see what you could bring to the table. And for me, that happened too late. I don't know if you got a chance to work with Steve Braband, but
I didn't work with Steve, but I do know of Steve, and we interacted on a couple of occasions.
Oh,
But yeah,
y'all would have on the simple fact that you was a wrestling fan. Shout out to him. He gave me the Daniel Bryan book. But he said he had made a joke. He said, "Man," because he was the pretty much the person running social, and he said, I'm gonna set up one-on-ones on Tuesdays so we can just talk Raw before he go home. But he saw me as an individual, him and Scott Turkin. But by then, my mindset was get back to Baltimore, and then for me, it was because the promotion, that whole stupid 8, 16, 24 months, and I get screwed out of the 16 month.
There's some story. I'll put it to you this way. Would you believe if I told you I never had a single interview for AP?
Are you freaking kidding me?
Never had a single interview for AP.
And how many times? I'm pretty sure you applied multiple times.
Applied multiple times. I was also producing shows. I was field producing. I was only CA field producing. Mm-hmm. I was producing a show, a studio show, like literally producing the show. I came with the content. I ran the meetings. I got in the chair. I did all those things.
Wow.
And you think about all the different projects I put myself on, like when we did the whole WrestleMania thing.
Yeah. Because you was doing work at NXT, if I'm not mistaken, when we was in Orlando.
We went to Mania. First, we went to Mania on our own accord because we just wanted to go as a vacation. But along the way, we started thinking, like, how can we generate content out of this? So literally, I stayed after those highlight shifts, because those highlight shifts go from 6 to 2. There was times I wasn't leaving the building until 5 a.m. And I was cutting out montages. I literally built out 12 montages for Mania.
Which one was this? Which Mania?
This was the Orlando Mania, so 33.
Wait, hold on. So you was in Orlando.
So here's what happened. So in the weeks leading up to
okay,
I was building up those. I would have my highlight shift, and I would work on these montages, like literally in between innings and such. I would work on these montages, and then after my shift, I would literally come back after I've done everything. I come back and it's like 2:30 in the morning, and I'm sitting there just cranking out stuff, and I'm running stuff by people, like Eva and Vic, and I'm running, ideas by them. Like, look, like this is what I got going on. I booked my own sessions and everything like that, my own editing sessions with After Effects editors and everything like that. Like to the point, these still exist on the server, by the way.
Did you get a copy of them?
Oh, I have all 12 of them. I have all 12 of them.
I gotta see them. I want to
have all 12 of them. I'll tell you the quick story of it. There was the one, so months later, Labor Day weekend, Triple H comes to First Take. He does First Take, and I'm sitting there, I'm working, doing whatever I was doing that morning. I can't remember what show I was on, probably College Football. I think it was College Football Live. And I remember looking up on the screen, I see this montage running. I'm like, whoa, wait, what? And so, it's this montage that I made for Mania, but it was one of those ones that didn't get shown because I had made so many of them. So like Cena did a spot on Sports Niggas. Coach was, doing the off the top rope thing and everything. So there was a spot where Cena and Nikki Bella do a Sports Center hit. So the Cena one airs. Then there's like a hit later on, like, something else goes on, like, they run another one. But Triple H, they run this one for him. And they come back, as they're coming back in, he goes, man, that was badass. Like, yeah, like on screen. And he's like, yo, that was badass. And so then I immediately hit up the guys that, are, running around with them from the ESPN. I'm like, look, I just want to we just want to have a conversation with them. That's all. So I introduced myself like, hey, I'm Omar Powell. I made that montage that you thought was really dope on air. I appreciate the endorsement, And he's like, what do you do around here? He starts asking me questions. Like, what do you do around here? So I'm like, well, this is my main responsibility, but this is things that I do and And he's like, it's my job to, look for the best talent in the world, right? And I was like, and everybody else is like getting all like looking around, doing like the whole look away thing. Like, oh shit, is he trying to get him, to come over? And he's like, we got a nice little facility if you want to come tour. And I'm like, yeah, let's try to make some things happen. So that was my funny story about the time Triple H almost poached me out of ESPN. Even though
what stopped you?
I don't know. I think just you're young, and everything right now. Because at that point, like the frustrations are very minimal at that point. So for me, like I was in a position where I felt good about it, but like and I still remember like his his guy that was the manager or whoever was with him. I remember his name and everything, and last name escapes me at this time, but remember his first name and everything. And I was just like, man. what life would have been like if I said, yeah, like, okay, let's do this and let's set this thing up. But it's also kind of a weird thing. You got to, play it off in front of all these different eyeballs because it's a very tongue-in-cheek kind of situation where
Yeah.
he's like, hey, it's my job. Like, yes, I know it's your job, but like hint, hint, wink, wink kind of deal, right?
Mm-hmm. And not to
So,
mention you black. So the
yeah,
moment you say yeah, somebody gonna blackball you.
yeah. And at that point, and honestly, at that point, I already knew I felt like I was blackballed already at that point
Oh
from a
wow.
particular person, uh, um, in a particular situation that was out of that I had no wrongdoing in.
Wow.
So I'll put that out there. But yeah, that was kind of fun. So I'm molded over for a while, and it was funny because they came back the next year when it was him and Stephanie now, and they were promoting the Ronda match,
Yeah.
and it was to the point where the guys were like, I was like, hey, I just want come over or whatever, and it was like, is this gonna be a situation where you ask for a job? And I was like, y'all remember this from a whole year ago? Really? You want to try to hold this over me? Like, I didn't say anything to begin with. They they approached me. I just was like, yo, sorry, I'm good. I don't know what you want me to say. So, but
It's,
yeah,
it's one of
that
those
was fun.
things that people don't realize. You being a black man, you always got to think ahead.
Yeah,
And, because if they would have said that to John Smith, that's white from Bridgeport, Connecticut, it was like, ha ha ha, he got offered a job. Everybody would have been bragging, but the moment
right.
it happened to you, nah, and then they try to keep you away from him, which is
Yeah,
crazy, but it would have been funny just to see you just take the information and interview and say, hey, look,
exactly.
and do you think now, understanding, further along in your career, knowing, hindsight being 2020, do you think you would maybe try to use that for leverage?
Oh, 100% would use that for. I would have been like, yes, sir. I would have shook his hand. I would have got the guy's information like they was running around with. I'd have set something up on my off days because that was an hour drive to Stanford.
Yep.
I'd have figured it out. I would have definitely have figured it out, and I'd have probably started a little bit of a bidding war between Vince and John Skipper at the time.
Yeah, it's just crazy that all the dedication you put, because for us that was something, when they started saying WWE was going to be covered, so I don't know if I told you the story. I went to coach, well, this is when I was in social media.
Mhm.
I went to him right before the All-Star break, baseball All-Star break. I said, hey, coach, can you do this video for me for Instagram? And he said, sure. I said, I wrote the script. I just need you to do the voiceover. It's about the Royals at the time had 7 players that was like top vote getters, and 3 of them had more than Mike Trout. So afterwards, I had a mark out moment, quote unquote. And I said, hey, just want to let you know, I've been a fan of yours. I'm a huge wrestling fan. So, I really appreciate this opportunity. He said, you're a wrestling fan? I said, yeah, stay tuned. We got some stuff coming. And I didn't think about that. I was just like, all right, cool. Then they announced that they was doing a deal with SummerSlam. You remember that year? And
Yeah.
I found out when I put my notice in, I put my notice in, just to say it was a Friday. I come back to work like that Monday or whatever, and Bray Band says, dude, I was gonna send you to SummerSlam, and that was gonna be like my first time out. Like you said,
Yeah.
talking about getting off of campus. Like I did the barbershop thing that year when with Rob King and them and John Reese Waters, but like that was going to be my opportunity, and I was like, God dang it, if I could have delayed my 2 weeks, I would have. But
to go for, I mean, so like there were some fun things, right? When we did Mania,
mm-hmm.
they rolled out the red carpet. Like, we ran around and did so much stuff that weekend, and the best part was too is like, we bought our own tickets to stuff, and we were essentially working on vacation. Like that's what we were doing. Like we
Yeah,
literally put into vacation time, and I still log my hours. Like, yeah, I'm getting my money.
no, definitely.
So, but it was funny. Like I was, we're backstage at NXT, we're backstage at Raw. We get the Drew McIntyre exclusive when he comes back, and we get, and I'm sitting there with this camera and all these different things, and I had the infamous Mark moment that for me, we know me, I'm always like reserved.
Yeah,
I'm never really like the Mark. I did not I did not feel like bringing a change of clothes to the arena.
mm-hmm.
So here I am walking around in my Bailey Sasha tee because my Boston Hug Connection tee. It's the one with like the painting of them. It's kind of like a painting type deal. And you're backstage, which just feels like just like taboo. Like, you're not supposed to do this, and especially
Mm-hmm.
as media. And I was like, look, I do not feel like changing. It's hot. It's Orlando. It's sticky out here. Like, I'm gonna just rock with what I got because we're gonna be here all day. Like, we're
Mm-hmm.
gonna be here for a few hours, and then we got the show. Like, I'm not gonna be bothered with trying to change clothes in the middle of the event. So that was my quote unquote market moment, which was fun as hell though. It was just kind of, it felt awkward in hindsight. I was like, man, I really walked around backstage in a t-shirt and never saw Sasha nor Bailey. So it was just kind of one of those funny moments in hindsight. But like, yeah, I was just like, yeah, I'm not changing my clothes. I'm here to work, but I'm really here for fun. I'm just working because we made this happen, because that's what we do. We make things happen.
Yeah, yeah, man, but like you saying 12 montages, like one montage is a lot of work. It's not just putting together a bunch of clips, like you said, the After Effects sessions, and that takes forever to render. Most of the time, sometimes you got to stay there with it. You sitting in the editing room with somebody you may or may not like.
And these were situations where it wasn't replacing what I was scheduled to do. These were on top of it. So, you know, that I think that's part of where, things kind of soured for me a little bit, is like, you do all the things they tell you to do, right? Like, you take initiative, you own your career, you put yourself in position. How do you make yourself stand out? And then, you know, nothing really comes from it. And it's kind of like, but then when you get your evaluations, it's, well, Omar's doing great or Brian's doing great. There's not really much that we can evaluate him on anymore. We just feel like, he's at the top of his game. And then it's like, so why haven't I been promoted? So that becomes like, the thing. And there's some more situations that played out in the 4 years thereafter too. But yeah.
When did you jump to the social side of things?
Coincidentally, June 10th, 2019. So everything runs on the 10th. Yeah, June 10th, 2019. I made that jump, which was by virtue of the website. Honestly, that's what that was. HR found me. I did not know this position existed. I knew there was a role in social opening up. I was part of a brainstorm meeting that January before, when they wanted to relaunch their sneaker show, and rebrand it as Sneaker Center. And I was part of that brain trust for that brainstorm for it. And when HR reached out to me, they're like, yeah, well, I was looking for someone, outside, but just realized you've been here for 4 years. I'm like, yeah. Like, you've been here 4 or 5 years. I'm like, yeah, I'm here. I've been writing about sneakers this entire time. Like, all right. And then when I finally sat down with the recruiter, I knew more about the position than she did. Like, I knew more about what they were planning to do with it than she did.
Twice as good to get half.
To get half as far. And literally, if it wasn't between that and having a lot of great friends on the social team who advocated for me, literally, it was a point where they were like, if you're not going to hire Omar, there's no reason to do this. Like, that's where we were with it.
Yeah.
And that's what allowed me to, take that role. So yeah, I did that for nearly 2 years.
So this is the fun part of the interview. I feel like, because with Alex, with Jacob, with Quincy, with Erica, I'm trying to think who else has been on here, and the name's probably escaping me. But John, what made you leave? Why did you leave?
Man,
you got all the time you want.
It's a loaded question. It's a very simple answer, but it's such a loaded question, right? The reason I left was, number one, my frustrations outgrew my desire to be there. At that point in time, I mean, I had been looking for really a year, like since the pandemic started. And honestly, to a point, I was a little afraid to leave earlier, because I started feeling like I was ready to go in 2016, in 2017. I was really feeling like
I remember we had conversations when you came home for a weekend. We was at a baseball game.
Yep, we was at Camden. Yeah, and I was ready to go then. But I think the thing was, as much as I was ready in the sense of like, I know it's time to go, I didn't know what the steps were.
Okay.
So, And in a sense too, there was also a bit of a fear factor involved, right? And it's something that I had to overcome a little bit, even in the 5 months since I've left, which was can I am I really this good? Like it was crazy because like I had done so much. I'd done things that people hadn't done, but I was in a place where I was like, am I really this good? And can I survive outside of this ecosystem? So like, yeah, they did a little bit of a doozy on me in that sense. Because I was like, man, am I only gonna be confined to sports? Am I only gonna be, the sneaker person? Am I only gonna be, you know, what we think Omar is, right? And in some ways, what I allowed my identity to kind of become, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's my frustrations outgrew my desire to be there. Also, to it was a culmination of a lot of series of events, um, where ultimately I felt completely underappreciated. Actually, not even unappreciated, like damn under. I was unappreciated. I was overlooked.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, like it wasn't even situations where I felt like, yo, I need the world. It was more so give me what I deserve. And every time there was a runaround of why I didn't get what I deserve. And I also saw by that point in time, I realized, okay, this is as far as they're only going to allow me to go. I can come up with every idea under the sun. I can do every bit of 360 marketing and thinking. I can be a 5 tool player, for a baseball reference. Like I can be all these things and do all these great things, but the powers that be are only going to allow me to get but so far. And so I was like, yo, it's time. And even more so, I took a leap of faith. One, I definitely trusted God in the situation where I was like, look, I'm presented with an opportunity that's only a 4-month project role. And I stepped out on a 4-month project role, and 2 months in, they retained me full time. So it was a thing where I was like, look, if I'm gonna do this, like I'm gonna do this. Like just and it got to a point too where you're like, man, it was better to take the opportunity that was only, a temporary moment, a temporary guarantee versus who knows how it would have played out had I stayed. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's a very simple answer, but a very loaded question that has a lot of layers as to why I left. And there's plenty of stories that tie into each part of why I decided to leave.
Oh yeah, it's definitely. I can definitely understand that. You sit there when you're young and you see ESPN on TV. It looks like that would never happen, right? And then you think about all the stories, how many times you being somebody who watched sports with your dad, how many times y'all sat down and watched the game on ESPN or watched some highlights, and then next thing you know, you look in and it's like, wait, well, this is actually attainable. Then you come home and you're like the local celebrity because you work at ESPN and people think
Yeah.
it's so unreachable. And then you, after a while, it's like you walk around and then they start feeling like, well, you should just be happy because you work here,
Exactly. That's
and
never the case. That's
how many
never.
times did how many times did you hear we get 700 people apply per day?
I mean, I didn't really necessarily hear that part. Like
Okay.
I knew particularly, at least in my class, I knew we were 5 of 900 plus people to apply
Mm-hmm.
who got that job in 2014. But for me, I'm never someone who's just satisfied to be there. For me, I always thought that would be a place that I got too much later in my career.
Okay.
Because of what we have built it up to be, right? It is the worldwide leader, it's the mothership, it's all that bull.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all those things, right? So for me, I always thought it would be much later in my career, but I never really thought that I would come in there at 22 years old, fresh out of college, you
Right.
know. And part of that's having the resources and the ability to, and being able to essentially outsource or source rather the best people you possibly can fresh out of school and get them out, get them young. Like that's an advantage that they have, and that the big marketed media industry companies have that other people don't have. But I always thought it would be much later in my career. So I got to a point though where I was never happy to just be there. Like I looked at everything as a challenge. There was something said to us, rather, no one gets promoted in 9 months, right? And I
Yeah.
said, all right, bet. Took that as a challenge. Did it happen? No, but I took it as a challenge. And then there's other things along the way. Certain things like that's that fuel, right? Like you
Mm-hmm.
take it and you run with it. So for me, I was never happy to just be there. Like I always looked at it as I'm at the top of the totem pole in terms of a company, but I'm at the bottom of the company.
Yeah.
So while I may be at the top of the totem pole, I'm that first Lincoln log at the top of the totem pole. So how do I get to be the one that the bird sits on top of? Like that's
Mm-hmm.
what I was trying to get to. So I was never just happy to just be there.
But again, we can be honest though, right? When they
Yeah.
say nobody gets promoted in that first 8 months or hardly anybody, that's bullshit. Because when you really think about it, it depends on where they put you, right? So if they like you, for instance, let's just go with this, right? Suppose you come in, they know you from Baltimore, you come in around 2015 at a time where the Orioles are really good, but then all this stuff happens at Baltimore, right? And
Yeah.
you meet the producer who understands your value to the company, you're getting promoted in 8 months because of all the stuff you did. Those ideas don't come, some of it do come with experience, but to know Baltimore, that doesn't come from, oh, you
Yeah.
just been here
That's
long.
life experience.
That's life experience. So, like I've known people who start off as social media. I ain't gonna name no names, but they start off as social media. Mike Greenberg liked them, and because of that, promoted in 8 months. Never went to screening, never did anything, had a easy path. And I can tell you, they didn't look like us. So they would always say that, but it also, like, I knew for me it wasn't going to happen because I started off as sales QC, which I don't even think they have that position anymore. See, even
Content screening is gone too. So like, yeah,
see, and those
all
were,
that stuff got phased out.
yeah, so then I started there, then I went to highlights, and it was kind of like always trying to figure out things. And because I didn't fall in love with highlights and I didn't fall in love with the process and make myself fall in love with the HPs, you know what I mean? Because, it was it was rough at times,
Yeah.
I mean, I worked with Jeff McGuire. So that right there, and I don't care. I remember I saw him at NABJ, and I was like, "What the hell is he doing here?"
So that's the thing I just said. We're out here looking for, we have the resources to be able
Yeah.
to.
But my thought was like, y'all, out of all people, y'all said this douchebag, and clearly you could tell he's like one of the people I just couldn't stand, but but then there was great people. Shout out to Marcus Patton, shout out to Nelson Seeley, like working with them. You felt appreciated, but it's also because they both Black and they understood the struggle. They understood, but when there's not enough people there to help you feel that way, it makes it harder,
It's a thing where I saw plenty of people that either I've trained in some form or fashion get past me. I've seen people come in significantly later, as recently as not too long ago, be promoted and have favorable things happen. And more power to them. Like, I hold no ill will to those individuals because they have nothing to do with,
right.
where my gripes are. And the people, because the people that I have smoke for is very, very targeted, right? Like, it's a thing where, like, so I don't fault you, the person, for being the beneficiary of those things. However, when I look at my personal situation, I look at it from the standpoint of I literally busted my ass day in and day out, right? Like, and I put myself in a position where I felt that, one, I was able to stand out, which, to a degree allowed me to do things that had not been done. But then also, in that same standpoint, I'm of the assertion and of the belief that, number one, those things should be seen and rewarded, especially when they're done at a level that is as if I had been doing it for years. So, like, prime example, I had a nice little back and forth with management about compensation when it came to, towards my end of my tenure in CAP. I had a nice little conversation about compensation because They had me doing a radio TV show for someone that I shall not name. And,
Him.
and yeah, and, and then
And who
there
knows
were
what you had to
times,
go through being on that, just because we know how he is.
honestly, it it was very tamed. I'll put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was very tamed because honestly, too, what was crazy was viewership went up when I was producing that show.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a slight to anybody else. There's not a slight to anybody else who produced that show before me. But I came with a set of ideas that I was like, look, we're gonna just try these things out. Like it was a place to try things out.
And mind you, you're producing the show as a CA. Not
as a CA producing the show, and there'll be times where they say, okay, hey, can you come in? Can you come in and do Stephen A's show as well? So so at this point now I'm doing 5 straight hours of TV.
Right.
And my pay isn't going anywhere because technically you're almost like losing money, right? Like in a sense, right? Because you're doing double the work and in the same time period. So there's not really any overtime involved because it all falls in your shift window.
Yeah.
Technically. So I was essentially like, yo, if you're gonna have me doing this, I'm gonna need some compensation or I'm gonna need a promotion. I'm gonna need something out of this. Like I'm gonna need these things, because one, I'm operating at a level that is significantly higher than where I currently am at that point, pay wise and level wise and experience wise, because you can't just apply as a CA straight to producer. That's not just gonna happen.
Right.
Like that's not gonna happen. There's levels and layers in between. So for me to be able to be in that position where I'm affecting actual growth from a viewership standpoint, right? Like, and then you have me come in and do the same thing with another show, and I can't get an interview for AB.
Mm-hmm.
That's where we have, that's why I talk about being unappreciated and then also overlooked for the things that you bring to the table. And it's not necessarily about comparing myself to anybody else. It's just solely about what does Omar bring to the table. Well, here's everything Omar's bringing to the table. Let's figure this out. But because you're being bullish on trying to figure it out, frustration grows. And when frustration grows, you look for a way out. So at that point, I found my way out in social. But then also too, after that, once you kind of get to certain spaces where you feel like they're only going to let you get but so far, they're only going to let you. The perfect analogy is, and I know people will probably give me hell for it. Kanye once talked about in 2013, talked about being able to put our best product on t-shirts. Like this is before he was able to, build his fashion, empire as we know it. But like, in a sense, the most basic thing that you could do is put your best vision onto a t-shirt. So, and to be analogous, it's like the best I was able to do is put my very best vision on a show in the middle of the day that no one watched until I started really being able to make a place for it where we're like, hey, let's make it work. Mm-hmm. And I'm not the person that's solely attributed to it, but I at least like to think in some way, shape, or form, I made the viewership experience a little bit more pleasurable for people who want to watch it more and more.
Yeah. Well, and I just want people to understand as a producer, first of all, there's levels, right? So you're a content associate, and at ESPN, most of the time, everything you see on television is done by a PA. It's not like in most cases where PA is just running around, grabbing cables, helping out. No, you're the one coming up with the idea, decide. But then you got the associate producer who gets to make the cool montages, right? And all the other stuff. Then you got the segment producer who's responsible for just that one segment. Everything that goes in that segment, that's what they're responsible for. Then you got the producer who decides the rundown, who got to keep track of times, who got to make sure ads run. All this stuff you was responsible for as a CA, not just, okay, we're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, boom. You got to make sure, because if those ads don't run, the company loses money. Because that's what I had to do on as sales quality control. Let people know, hey, you didn't run the Buffalo Wild Wings play of the day. You didn't run the Chick-fil-A opener. You got to make sure all of this stuff goes on. This is what and
all these things.
Yeah, and so like right now we see the frustration at the time of this recording. We're about 3-4 days out of New York Times just releasing that article where Rachel Nichols was pretty much exposed as being a fake ally, in my opinion, because she was upset. She said that while ESPN, while Maria Taylor is good, pretty much, ESPN is putting her in that position because they want to mess up. They have a long history of bad diversity, and so we're fresh off of that. Y'all see the on-screen stuff, hearing about the Carries and the Jamels and their frustrations. This is coming from one of the best producers in the world. I'm going to go ahead and say it. He won't, but I'm going to go ahead and say it because it's my brother. One of the best producers in the world who's producing 5 hours of television, and there's no room for error because he's black. And what would I'll beep that out. But what would they have said? Make sure I mark that down. Bleep. What would those people have said? Oh, well, it was his fault. It wouldn't have been the person, because we've seen on TV where in maybe not ESPN, but in other places where they say, oh, the producer didn't do this, that, and the other. The producer didn't do X, Y, Z. So he would have got the blame. But when it runs smoothly, oh no. As we say on the wrestling round, they gave you the dusty. Nah, baby, that's for somebody else. We're gonna keep you right where you at, babe. It's the same thing.
Hard times. Hard times. But but like I said, like it's like I said at the top, right? Mm-hmm. I'm in a much better space. And the thing is, like, when you really look at it, like, yeah, it's this is a thing where I'm, how can I put this? I am very much so open to always speak about my experiences. And I'm also not one to deter someone necessarily from, if that's the place where you want to go, it's the place you want to go, and, or whatever it is that you want to do, right? So all I can ever do is use my experiences and my stories as a way to be able to, let you know, like, hey, these are the certain things that you will face along the way. But honestly, too, when we look at it, like, yeah, I have those 4 letters on my resume, and I'm, in a position now where I feel, I'm at a place where I feel very, wanted. I feel very appreciated. But it's not only just that, it's the fact that it feels like there's room to grow, there's room to improve. But then also too, it's been a good change of pace, right? Because like I said earlier, like, they turn you into a machine, and like I was a machine. Like I honestly felt like I was a machine. Like I would do a 6 a.m. shift, have for 2 days, and then have a 2-day off day in the middle of the week, and then turn around and do the late nights, and then have and then do that. Like that's what? Like that is murder on your body. That is murder on your mental. Like there's a lot of shit that goes into that, right? So, but I will say, with anybody, proceed with caution. That's the first part, right? Like, definitely proceed with caution, no matter where you go, but also keep your eyes open, especially a person of color, keep your eyes open and just really just look around for what they are. But like, once you really start to see things for how they actually are happening, your perspective changes a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And let's not necessarily hope your story ends up like mine or anybody else's, right, in that same vein. But at the same time, it's all a what's the word? I guess I'm gonna go back to cautionary tale, right? Like, it's all part of that cautionary tale, which is probably also what I told some kids at MSU a long time ago. I was like, look, use me as a cautionary tale, because all the things that people tell you that you need to do to succeed does not necessarily mean it will A, make you successful, or B, it's the actual path you need to take. People are like, oh, do the internships, do the unpaid internships. Hell no, I'm not doing unpaid internships. Are you crazy? Like, no. So like, me, I'm someone who never had an internship, right? Like, that is just, no path is really the quintessential path, as much as people want to try to tell you that it is.
Yeah. When was you able to break out? So now you moved on. I don't know if you want to mention the company's name.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
it's like no. Laundry service, man. They're good, and for me, it's been good. Like it's such a crazy name because people are like laundry service. Like you gonna do stuff with clothes? Or you like
Mm.
a laundromat? I'm like, really? Come on, me. Like even though it's not super far fetched, I love fashion and clothes. So yeah, but yeah, I mean, it's an agency, and life is good over there. So far, so good, right? So,
Now, when you
nothing
how
bad.
long did it take you to break out of the machine bubble? Because like you said, like I know for me, when I started working at Johns Hopkins, getting used to being off on weekends, right? I remember the first Memorial Day, they was like, "Oh yeah, we don't work." I was like, What? I've been used to working on all the holidays. So how long did it
Yeah.
take you to get out of that machine bubble?
Honestly, it took a little bit, right? In the
Mhm.
sense of like number one, I gotten so used to like not having weekends off and such that I was just like the first kind of couple were like, oh shit, I have weekends off. Like, what? Like, okay. But, right. And then the pleasant surprise comes where it's like, oh, we have half day Fridays on, during the summer. And I'm like, excuse me? Like, oh yeah, we're done at 12 or 3. I'm like, oh yes, all right, cool. I'm like, all right, and when I have my managers, they speak to me about, they're like, we want to make sure, you're having your work-life balance and make sure we're not over exhausting you on certain things and da da da. I'm like, shit, y'all would never hear the 4 letters. You would never hear that, right? Like
Right.
you would hear it like in the sense of like, you see it in your little handbook that it's like, oh yeah, work-life balance. And then it's like, nah, we need you to come in and do this. We need you to come in and do
Mhm.
that. Like, we're gonna add this 6 day onto your schedule, even though you already had time off for the holiday weekend, which happened to me. Um
Wow.
yeah, there's stuff like even though I did not go. But yeah, it's things like that. So it took a little bit. And also, too, by the time I left, I honestly hated sports, which was weird. That
Right.
was a weird thing for me because, like, as a kid, that was all I wanted to do. I wanted to play sports or I wanted to be around sports. So it was very weird to sit there and be like, yo, I don't want to watch a basketball game. I don't want to watch a football game. Like last season, I pretty much did not watch. I barely watched a basketball game last year. Like I just couldn't bring myself to really do it. Like
Mhm.
I watched the Super Bowl and I was just like, yo, even though it was like the Chiefs and the Bucks, I didn't really care. I was working, but at the same time, I was just like, it was a situation where you're working, you're like, yo, I don't really want to be here right now.
Mhm.
Even though I'm remote, I'm still like, yo, I don't necessarily want to be here right now. Like if I could just watch the game, I would just watch the game. But honestly, I don't feel like even watching the game. So I had to I'm finally now getting back to a space where like sports are kind of enjoyable again,
Okay.
somewhat,
Well,
somewhat.
you gotta get ready because we went in the Super Bowl this year.
Oh, first of all, um, first off, September 13th, Ravens Raiders. I may not be in the stadium because they're going to outprice me, but
Right.
I will be around acting some kind of way because we're gonna blow them out. Like
Yeah.
Ravens by a billion, first and foremost, and I'm talking my shit.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay. Okay.
Second of all, if the Ravens win the Super Bowl,
You coming home?
I'm going to the parade. That's first and foremost, and I'm acting a fool there. Third of all, I'm gonna be insufferable on Twitter because I've always had that troll persona, right? Like the
Mm-hmm.
persona of being a troll. I will be insufferable on there for people because y'all gonna mess around like Lamar Jackson get a Super Bowl. Please believe I'm running around like I won that damn thing. Like that's how crazy I'm gonna be going.
Hey, and you know what? It's one thing. Like I've been a fan of a bunch of Ravens, right? But I've never had to defend any of them. Like I have to defend them all.
I've had to defend some of them, but like nothing like this. Even still, like I just laugh at certain things, right?
That's
Like
what I mean, though. Like
we talked about it, right?
we
We talked
defended
about
Flacco, because nobody
I
wanted.
defended Flacco. I even defended Flacco into Lamar's,
Oh,
run
you went longer. I stopped
a
it after
little longer.
2016.
I, I I had to because at the time, like you got to run with what you've been playing. Like
That's true.
I get it. Like so, like he's on the field. I got it. I got to like at least be like, all right, look, like
He's our guy.
so right until he's not, he's our.
Hmm.
But you get into a situation where now, everybody's a sports, reporter, everybody's a sports analyst, everybody's a sports
Oh God.
expert, insider. You got people saying, stupid things like Daniel Jones is faster than Lamar Jackson. Like what? Just because he ran faster on one particular play, the same play where he tripped over his own feet because he was running that fast,
Yep.
in a straight line.
Mm-hmm.
Not the guy who's literally just like putting everybody on skates from the go and cutting and juking and still running 20 miles an hour, cutting and juking. Are you crazy?
Mm-hmm.
Put him in a straight line. I guarantee you it's not a contest. So everybody is a sports reporter and a sports insider and a sports journalist these days, right? Just like everybody's a sneakerhead these days. Hence why I don't use the word sneakerhead. So it's just that same thing. But yeah, I will be insufferable when the Ravens win a chip, because number 3 needs to happen. And the one thing I've said is, when we won the last one, I said I don't want to wait 12 years in between, but damn, it's getting close. And I don't like the fact that it's getting close like this. I don't want to wait another 12 years.
I'm gonna be straight up. I want to see my black quarterback win a Super Bowl.
Man, I want Lamar to literally win a Super Bowl, win the MVP, right? Get on a track with Kodak, and then literally do whatever the hell he wants to do around Florida for the offseason and come back and run it back. Like, that's where I'm at with it.
Okay, I like that.
That's where I'm at with it. And yeah, and if anybody's going to talk shit, I'm going to talk my shit for him. Like, he don't need to worry about it. You go play. I'm going to do it, because because honestly, I might be a person who does not necessarily like conflict, but I do not run from it. So
right, facts.
In any form. In any form. So we will be riding out for number 8. Please believe that.
I will say this. This is one of those times I wish you could get the experience the be at 2 places at once, because being in Baltimore during this time, like if you think 2000 and 2012 was fun, 19 was it? Yeah, 19 was the year when he won the MVP. Yeah. Being in the city was like amazing. You know,
I mean, I was there. I went. Hold on, let me make sure I get my years right. I didn't go to the game against Tennessee. I cried.
Okay.
Tennessee Titans.
Right.
That's remembering my entire thought. I did go to the playoff game the year before against the Chargers.
Okay.
And I drove home, made that move, and that was a thing where, like, to that point, I never saw a loss in person at a Ravens game.
Oh wow!
Never saw a loss, and that was 20 years ago into the stadium. Like, since it opened, like, I was in the stadium and never saw a loss until that time, and I was like, I don't know what to do with this information. This is kind of weird,
right?
And then 2019 comes. I'm like, yo, this is good. This is good, but this is bad, because you got to lose a game eventually. And the problem is, if you keep winning, you're going to lose a game that you can't play the next week. And sure enough, that's what happened. They lost the game, and there was no more next week, right? Then you had this year, which was like, yes, we got the monkey off our back, right? But then it's just like, man,
everything that could go wrong went wrong that day.
Went wrong,
from
right?
The win,
Tucker, the concussion, the offensive line being
damn Madden curse, man.
Like, I don't even know what it was, but it was just so much stuff. And I was just like, man. So, like, I've been a big proponent of, I want a number 1 receiver. I'm still pissed at the fact that Eric didn't trade somebody and some picks and a bushel of crabs for Julio.
Yeah.
Honestly, I put the best deal on the table, and I said, yo, here it is. Here's player A, who I won't mention. Here's player A. Here's a first-round pick, and here's a bushel of crabs from Jimmy's. Like, here we go. Like,
I like our guys, though.
Who's turning down Maryland crabs? Like,
right?
Unless you're allergic, who's turning down crabs? Nobody. But I mean, I like our guys, but it's. I've been very vocal about being anti-Greg Roman, so
that's true.
It's got to be
short leash. He's on a short leash this year.
Oh, it's the shorter leash than Cameron had.
Bingo.
It's a shorter leash than I give anybody ever in terms of the organization I can think of. Honestly,
Well, our history. We always got to make a drastic move before we win the Super Bowl. Before it was Tony.
It was Caldwell and Banks and all those. Yeah, you got to you fire Cameron for Caldwell, and honestly, I called that second Super Bowl because it was right after we lost to Denver.
I remember you telling me that. Yeah,
in that big blowout at home, and we played the Giants. And I looked at the schedule. I'm like, we're gonna win the Super Bowl. I was like, don't know why I feel that way, but I just feel like we're gonna win the Super Bowl. And then, sure enough, we won the Super Bowl.
I felt it that year, and people
Yeah,
thought
it
I was
just
crazy.
felt like all right, that was the moment you needed to wake up and be like, look, we're a better team than what we put on the field today. And then
Mm-hmm.
the rest of the season, you saw it. Like they were better than the Colts. They were better than I forget who else did they play?
The
They played the Colts in the
Broncos.
wild card. The Broncos, yeah, the Broncos, which gave me a heart attack,
Yeah.
a literal heart attack. Because
And then the Patriots.
every Ravens game comes with with a defibrillator. So
Mm-hmm.
every game, and then the
Even that
Patriots.
Patriots game, because at halftime we was down 10-7, and then they just like
Yeah,
woke up. We
but
felt they was gonna win, but it was like, hello, come on.
I never felt like the game was in doubt because of what happened the year before.
Right.
So that was the thing. It was like it's going to take their best game to beat us. For us, it's just going to take us just being pissed off at what happened last year,
Bingo.
and that's what happened. They were like, all right, bet we're not letting this go, and they didn't let it go. So yeah, but that's my squad. I'm expecting big things, great things, and I might go to the Thanksgiving day or the Monday night game after Thanksgiving. I might do that since I'll be in town.
Okay.
Um, yeah, but that I gotta, I always gotta try to see at least one Ravens game a year. Definitely.
Yeah,
Because
last year I worked the past 2 seasons. I worked with the local union, and I got staff for the best game was the Jets game that Thursday night, even though it was freezing, because that's when Lamar broke the record. And I actually told Erin Andrews, I said they didn't get the ball. She was like, they didn't. I said no, the ball is still on the field. They need to get the ball. So she runs to tell the Ravens PR dude, not gonna mention his name, and he says, "Oh, we got the ball." She's like, "No, you didn't." And I'm sitting there like, y'all was gonna keep playing with that football, and then they finally got the ball so that they could save it and send it to Canton, you know. But that was when he, broke Vic's record. And I was like, they was like, yeah, he broke it. We just can't play, we can't say it yet because we won't wait till they score the touchdown. Last year, that Steelers game, I was there, and if I never hated the Steelers before, just seeing how they reacted after they won, talking to the fans, it was limited fans, they sitting there, and I was like, you got to be kidding me.
I, I never have any love lost for that franchise. Like never. I don't care what will happen. You can win 10 Super Bowls. I will still slander you into the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's just where I'm at with it. And even so for me, I went to the game in 2013, the Thanksgiving Day game.
Oh, yeah.
The one where Jacoby runs down the sideline and Tomlin steps on the field. That was the game. I was there for it. I was like, and we still beat them into the dirt, right? Yep. So like, there's not many things that give that. I think the things that give me joy sports wise is I'm still waiting on the Orioles World Series.
Tell me about
I'll be waiting for a very long time.
Let's hope we can get one in the
2027. That's what the prediction says. That's what MLB.com said. 2027.
2027. Okay.
That's what MLB.com says. So I just gotta stay alive another 6 years.
Hey, you know what? Shout out to Seth Horowitz, my producer from Mike and Mike. He said it was Kristen Balboni. She was working at ESPN at the time, and she was actually getting ready to interview for an on-air position. So she had used Seth and I kind of for her demo reel, and I'll never forget. I want to say it was August 2016, September. He said in 2016 the Cubs would win the World Series. He called it, and it happened. So if it's 2027, man, I'll be 41. But
I mean,
I'm cry like a baby.
I would definitely cry, because that's the one thing I would trade a Super Bowl for a World Series. At its core, Baltimore is still a baseball town. At its core,
I'm glad somebody else says that.
we love football, crab cakes and football. That's what Maryland does. Is what that's the phrase, right? Mm-hmm. But at the same time, Baltimore, for as much football history as we have, that is a baseball town, and so, and that's all up until Kevin Durant brings us the NBA team.
Wait, that's going to happen?
I don't know. I'm curious. I am curious to see what they do with the arena, though. I feel like we've gotten so far off the topic, but yeah, I'm curious to see what they do with the arena, because that's well overdue, and that would be great for the city to actually have a basketball team, because the Wizards ain't it. I'm gonna just say that out loud. The Wizards saying it because they forgot where they came from, but they
Mhm.
want to play club mix after every win.
How about that?
Makes sense. So like, but yeah.
Yeah. But before we get out of here, man, I gotta ask you. You look back at your career, and obviously you're still young, but you're a vet. What was your breaking through the glass moment? The moment you realized, like, I'm good, and I'm really good at what I do.
Man, there's a couple moments, but I'm gonna tell you one particular moment. It was 2018. So at this point now, I'm 4 years into my career, right?
Mm-hmm.
But 2018, I went on vacation. I went out to San Diego for a little bit. Hi, Cindy. I went out there for a little bit and just unwinded, just relaxed. But the thing was, it was just perfect timing for me to have that vacation. And then it was shortly after my birthday. So like I did that and then I came back and had to do a montage because at this point I'm doing montages on a unit. And so it was Ravens Steelers. And this is one, that I just kind of always felt was interesting, right?
Mm-hmm.
And normally we put everything to like 15 seconds, 20 seconds max. I was like, yo, fuck that. I am going in on this project. So, because it's a subject I know very well, is Ravens Steelers. So I'm like, yo, we're gonna do this. And when I say I bodied that piece of work, that might be I often look at that piece, every once in a while. I just look at it. Because that was one where I did it and I sat back afterwards and I was like, man, I think that was the moment where I was like, yo, I'm actually good. Like I'm really good. And because it was just a thing where like if there was a bit of storytelling that really, gravitated and grabbed you, like if you were someone who never seen a game of football and never seen that rivalry, that was a moment where I was like, I made it very easy for fans of either team to digest. So like you felt hatred on either side.
Mm-hmm.
And or if you were a casual fan or the person who was oblivious, you were able to quickly understand in that time frame, like why this is so intense.
Yep.
Like, yeah, I mean, from the music choice to the sound design to the audio, the sound bites, the visuals. I literally that was one where I felt like I was like I blacked out and I was like, yo, this is it. Like this is my I'm good. I'm damn good. And so that was that moment. That was a moment. And then I'll give a second one. The second one really was now that I'm gone.
Mm-hmm.
Now that I'm gone and I'm able to succeed outside of that realm and you know be in a much better situation. That's what allowed me to feel like yeah, I'm good. And not only that, like I'm good from a skill standpoint, but I'm good from a mental standpoint. I'm good from a career standpoint, and I'm still pressing all the right buttons and doing all the right things to help me get to where I want to get to, honestly.
Wow, man, that's amazing. Do you still? So, do you have? I guess, do you have your like clips and stuff for public viewing, or you haven't
Yeah,
posted?
there's some stuff on my Vimeo.
Okay.
There's some things on my Vimeo. Yeah, but then anything else really like I have it stashed in my. I have a couple things that never made air that was stashed in my phone that I like to keep around.
Mm-hmm.
Just so I could see like yo, like I was kind of cooking up some things like that. But yeah, there's a large chunk of it on the Vimeo.
Okay, I'm gonna definitely check it out, man. Before we get out here, let the people know where they can find you if you want to be found.
I'm a ghost at all times. But nah, I'm on Twitter. I'm on Instagram. You just gotta find me, really. But I am kind of like a ghost. At least I try to be, because that's just part of the fun of it, right? Like you gotta
Right.
be ghost a little bit. But I'll retweet so and I'll put it in my story. So then people will find me that way.
Cool, cool. Omar, man, definitely appreciate you coming on. You said you was gonna do it, and I think you did. You officially set the record.
I said that jokingly, but then I realized I look at the clock. I'm like, oh yeah. So yeah.
I been like writing down like notes and time codes. I got this. Me and Dwayne got this joke because usually when we're doing the show, I'm like writing down notes and time codes of when I'm parts the clip off. And so, but yeah, man, I definitely appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, no problem. Appreciate you reaching out, man. Like, if there's anybody really who wants like, some more just like honestly, like I'm always about speaking, at least not necessarily on my career, but just any advice that I can give people or anything like that, like, or even, situations where I can sit down and share my experiences and such. Like I'm always open to do that. Because I definitely want to, see people succeed. And that's the biggest thing. Because honestly, too, when I came into this, I didn't have anybody to show me, to show me the way or show me the ropes, right? And I say all that with a grain of salt, so people should also listen to it with a grain of salt. But if any way I can always be of service to somebody, and help out in that way, that I'm always open to that, So that's my send off. I always will be open to that. So yeah.
Definitely, folks. Omar Powell is, like I said, I'm definitely proud of you, to see, like I said, I remember watching when you came at ESPN, and like I said, we instantly connected, both being Black from Baltimore and baseball fans. I always remember when Rochi said we had the one-upsmanship when we was playing the softball game. He was like, because that was the one time I did get you out.
I'm such that's the thing. Like you get me on any field. I'm such a competitor. Like I hate to lose. Like, and that's probably why I achieved some of the success I have achieved, because I literally I treat it's almost like when people were saying about like, oh, and I say this again, like, you're gonna say it like, oh, you say like you almost know him. If people watch The Last Dance and thought Mike was psycho for the way he went about shit, like I'm kind of in that same boat a little bit. Where like I get it, because like I just don't like losing. Like, so whether it's any field of play, even in my career, like I don't like lose. So, but yeah, like that was the thing. Like the game one-upsmanship, like I'm always down for that. I'm always gonna talk my shit. I'm always gonna be like, yo, I'm gonna try to one up somebody somehow, some way.
Yeah, it was funny because he was sitting there, and I remember we were losing, but he was sitting there from the side, and he was like, "Uh-oh." It was like tense. Like he was like commenting. He's like, "Got the two guys from Baltimore."
It's like I took softball so serious up there, man, because like I just don't like losing. Like that company softball tournament, that one year we won, I remember so vividly. It was like Kali was like, man, start hitting, like start, like go.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was like that. It was like, because softball tournament starts like 9 in the morning, and me, I'm not really a morning person. So first couple of bats, I like trash. Then I was like, all right, wake up a little bit. I'm like, yo, nah, we here. And everybody else is out there drinking, having a good time. Like, they brought their family and their dog, and I'm out here for blood. Like, yo, I'm trying to win. Like I got my Gatorade, I got my crackers, I got my orange slices. Like I'm out here ready to try to win this thing. Y'all looking at it as a day at the park. Like, no, I'm here to win.
So, I never played in one of them, but I heard they were intense.
They're intense. Like I did maybe 3 or 4 of them. It's like super intense. Like it's just a thing where, and like I said, for me, it's perfect for me because I just don't like to lose. So in a situation where you gotta either you gotta be in a situation where you have to win to keep yourself alive. Oh yeah, I'm definitely like, yo, we're here for this. That's me all day.
Well, just know you somebody that if I would when I want to go to war in a production state, I need you on my team.
I'm here. Like I said earlier, like I said earlier, I made that declaration. I was dead serious when I said that. You put me and anybody else that was sitting on that road at that time against anybody else in that room, we will smoke you. I personally will smoke you. So like that's just the self-belief I have in myself. It's like, I'm a competitor, and that's just how I always, look at any situation. You got to compete, So
that might be the name of the episode. Black screening at ESPN will smoke anybody.
Omar, make the quote panel. Omar said, "We will smoke any of y'all. You bring your crew. I'm gonna bring me, my guys, my girls. We gonna make this work. You and your crew versus me in the revolution. That's how we gonna look at it."
Yeah, man. I definitely appreciate it, man. Thanks for coming through.
Yeah, man. I appreciate it.
All right, folks, that'll do it for this week's episode of Breaking Through Glass Ceilings. Really hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope it shed some light on things of what can happen in your career. And like Omar said, everybody has a different path, and that's what I want people to understand. Everybody has a different path. Everybody has a different experience. But be careful. No matter what you do, what field you're in, there's always snakes in the grass. So be careful and go after what you want. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast. Make sure you share it with your friends. Let them know they can find Breaking Through Glass Ceilings on Apple, Spotify, Google. You name it, we are there. Drop me a 5 stars on Apple. Hit me with a follow on Spotify. And give me a good rating. I appreciate that. Until the next time, folks, you can find me at Brian H. Waters on all social media platforms. So long, everybody. This podcast is brought to you by B. Waters Productions. The music by Hypno Beats. You can find on Instagram at Hypno_Beats with a Z.